Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you, because I know that we are all just all over the planet. But I guess we all come here to learn, to understand certain things in order to ascend, right? To make our way out of this planet. But until we are here, there's a lot to learn. And I would say that this is the kind of show that you may get back to later and rewatch it again in order for you to kind of process certain things, especially if there's like a question arising in your head, especially those that asked me this question. Am I on a fallen timeline? And if that's the case, then what do I do about it? And this is something that has been coming up massively lately, where I come across somebody on my individual sessions and I'm like, well, your parents are actually not supposed to be your parents. The place, the country you were born in is actually not the country you were supposed to originally incarnate into. And that's when this whole question appears, how do I get myself out of it? So we have a lot to speak about today, and I'm very happy that I took a day off today. I slept 10 hours. In the morning, I made myself a homemade spa because there was a lot of material to put together. Overall, I think I've got like 10 pages of just writing, 8 or 10 pages. So we'll be going through them slowly, explaining certain things, certain concepts. And thank you to all of you who contributed to basically asking me questions, because I think that's the way that I'm going to be doing my shows right now. From now on, I would say, even though that's the same thing that I did last week, where I will be just reaching out to you on my Facebook, just come on guys, just ask me questions about this certain topic so I can actually kind of tune in to the collective consciousness more easily, so I can actually know and kind of, so I know what to focus on my shows, what kind of specific topics you would like me to speak about. And it seems like there's been always a lot of questions about the timelines. How is it actually with time? I mean, we all know that it's an illusion, that it actually pretty much doesn't exist. The concept of the time and space, I will speak about it a little bit today. But actually, once we realize that everything happens in the now, I think that is the most important thing that I would like you guys to realize, that everything, this whole programming that we've been having about the time, about like, oh, well, you cannot change your past, so just get over it and just keep going with your life. While it's actually not so simple. And those of you who had some traumas during the childhood, I mean, who didn't, especially those that have been targeted even before they were born, including myself. There's a lot of things that after watching this show, maybe it's something that you didn't fully realize that you actually need to work on. So I hope that this will be to some degree enlightening to all of you. And it will help you find a certain start point where you could actually begin to work with yourself, to work with reprogramming your past in order to get yourself on the right timeline. So with that being said, I welcome you to tonight's show, and we'll be speaking about the mechanics of timelines. In the beginning, I will kind of explain how does it work, because I received a couple of questions like how many timelines one dimension has, what is it with that 12 timelines and these probabilities. This is all very complex, but at the same time, it's very simple because actually everything is based on this Rouchet pattern, the 12 and the 12 is actually appearing everywhere in organic systems. So this basically already gives us a clue that when you don't know what kind of number it is, just shoot for 12 and it's usually going to be the right one. We'll be speaking a little bit about what kind of timeline this planet is following right now. There's a lot of kind of concern that I'm sensing in the energetic field when it comes to like, okay, well, when are things going to get better? When are we finally going to get ourselves out of this planetary prison? And at some point, I literally feel pressure when I think about speaking about it. So I'm going to kind of explain what's going on right now and how this shift is going to look like. So hopefully it will give you more of an insight into it. We'll be also speaking about the consequences of being born on the wrong timeline and how do you get yourself out of it. There's quite a lot of different factors to consider when it comes to being born on the wrong timeline. And we'll also speak about something which I would call the energetic battle that tries to put all of the humanity on the fallen timeline and how they are actually doing that since, I would say, ever since I released this material about the artificial intelligence, the topic of timelines kept coming back until I was like, okay, well, I finally have to speak about it. And maybe once I speak about it, there will be a lot more clarity. Yeah, I already have a question. How can one be born in a wrong timeline? So I'm gonna answer that. Because there could be a lot of different reasons why that is actually the case. And we are going to go through all of these reasons why you might be born on the wrong timeline. Because it's actually, to be honest with you, this is terribly scary. Because originally, once a soul incarnates into the human body, what they are supposed to do, they have come here holding a certain soul contract. As many times I was speaking about it, you have a contract, a soul contract, that you usually want to kind of fulfill in a certain lifetime. But what happens when you're on a fallen timeline is that it completely throws you off track. You're trying to do everything and it doesn't work out. And you don't even know what that purpose is because you're not aligning with these frequencies that are supposed to guide you on that right path. So we'll speak about it. And I will be answering other questions about the Mandela effects, what kind of actions can shift you to a different timeline. And I really like this question that somebody asked me on Facebook, how do we align more with our heroic timeline and what actually the heroic self is. So with that being said, I guess I will just get right to the point without talking too much in between. Okay. So the first question, how many timelines one dimension has? So when we perceive things in context of time, it is important to understand that what we perceive as dimensions are also bands of time. So a dimension is not like you just go through time and you suddenly see this stargate and you cross through it and you're in other dimension. Like, yes, that's something that you can do, but actually through the frequency accretion, you're getting higher and higher when it comes to the dimensional accretion. So going through time is actually the frequency accretion itself. What is called future is actually located in the higher frequency bands, while the past is located in the lower frequency bands. So that means that when you think about something that happened in the past, it already has a lower frequency band than what you're thinking of, than like you in the present, right? Maybe that's the best way to describe it. So actually time is very tricky because, as I said, everything happens in the now. Everything is located in the same point, but this point becomes a line in our perception due to certain codes that we have in our template. So that also brings us to this context where certain lands or places that exist for us in higher dimensional planes actually exist in the future from our perspective. So that's why the time is simultaneous. So this is another kind of illusion, another kind of programming that we've had for a very long time, where we've been learning. We've been talking last week about these places such as Telos, Agartha, or this 5D that we are going to, according to the New Age movement. But actually, these places exist in the future. So there needs to be somebody who's going to create these places, who's going to set a frequency base in order for these places to actually manifest in these higher dimensions. It's not like that they just came out of nowhere and we are just going to jump and transition to these worlds. Some of us came down here to this realm in order to set a frequency base for this planet to transform and become something that in the past was referred to as Tara in 5D. And right now there's even like a larger transition taking place, well, where this planet is not going to become Tara, because otherwise if Earth aligns with this 5D timeline that is being kind of all the time literally inserted into our way of thinking in the spiritual communities, the planet would fall if it went to 5D right now, because that dimension is pretty much twisted. You don't want to experience 5D. It's even worse than the astrals. So that's why this planet needs to make a shift to completely different set of cycles of time, a completely different set of time cycles that will allow this planet to avoid that fall path. And I'm gonna speak about it more in a moment, but just so you already know, these places, we all are in this mental rush to get to these higher realms, but actually we are setting a groundwork for them here. So that's why this dimension, the reason why we are here, it requires action from us in this realm, right? There are specific moments in time during the being's or the system's time cycle where if the being or a system accreted enough frequency, they can progress up to the next dimensional band. So that basically means that they are going to shift their angular rotation of the particle spin. They will change the density matter type, upgrade their Merkaba vehicle, all of these things that are taking place when you're going either one dimension up or one density up, right? So there are these specific intersection points where you can actually accrete yourself quicker and get yourself to a, let's say, to a higher frequency time cycle, or like, and that at the same time means that you may progress to another dimension or another density. Every being and a system that chooses to externalize itself, whether that's in the internal or external creation, it has to progress through specifically structured time cycle through which the being or a system evolves, experiences, and accretes frequency towards its reunion with the guard source consciousness fields. So when we come into externalization, we need to follow a specific set of rules. And that includes, let's say, seeding yourself into different time cycles. So everything is simultaneous. So That's why we have different aspects of our cosmic identity that coexist in the same time. And it feels like they've been supporting me a lot today with putting this material together. But yeah, they exist in the same time, so you can co-create with them even though they are in the future, right? Or in the past, depends. So the way that it works is that they exist at the same time, even though most of us perceive it as that we only exist, and maybe there's like some kind of an aspect of us maybe on the Pleiades or on Andromeda, right? But actually, they are at the same time going through different time cycles. We are going through the time cycle that is aligned with the planetary time cycles of planet Earth, while your cosmic aspect that lives in Andromeda, it's also going through a certain set of time cycles. The only difference is that the higher you are, let's say, on the frequency, so let's say you're in the 11th dimension, you have much more awareness of these lower time cycles that you're going through at the same time, right? So your Andromedan aspect may be a lot more conscious than your 3D self kind of trying to put all these mechanics together. But the rules are the same for everybody, whether that's a planet or an individual being, animals, plants, they also have their time cycles. It's just like they are much smaller than the ones that we have. So everybody is going through the time cycles. It's just about a certain perception and consciousness that we've got. So the space and time, as I said in the beginning, they don't exist actually, but they are constructs through which we experience our evolution as an externalized, individuated form. The perception of space and time takes place through our DNA, which holds the encryptions for manifestation of time and space. So that's pretty much how it works. And actually our DNA template is like the out picture of our personal unified field. So again, there are these templates behind templates behind templates. I made a small note here. Okay, so now there might be a question like, okay, so why I don't really remember, if I have my DNA, why I don't exactly remember all of these cosmic aspects that I have of myself? Why is it so difficult to actually get to the core of who you are? So this is just like an answer that came through that I would like to share with you, and it's pretty much related to what's going on in the template. So certain DNA modifications, and along with that, the narratives, such as life is only on planet Earth, something that we basically have been taught for centuries, that we are the only beings in the entire cosmos. This has incredibly limited our perceptions of time and space. We have been misled to believe that the civilization on the planet started to develop about 3,000 years ago after we learned the art of reading and writing, right? These programs are still running through the epigenetic overlay of our DNA, and right now they are in the process of the mass clearing. In order for us to become so-called time masters, first we have to truly realize and understand how vast our planet, solar system, galaxy, and the entire universe is, and how many incredible forms of life inhabit it. So this is basically all of these different spirituality programs. They start to clear that insert that is, funnily enough, I would say, literally stuck in the epigenetic overlay of many people who are still wondering whether the aliens are actually a thing. And another aspect of it is, as I said before, this 5D thing, which I would say to me is incredibly frustrating sometimes, as it has been literally like a virus going through all of these spiritual communities, where we've been taught, I would say, ever since the 80s, that this planet is transitioning to the 5th dimension, and we are going along with it, and I don't know, maybe one day we're gonna go through the stargates and all of that. So it's been something that another program that was inserted, because many people started to awaken. They started to realize that there's much more to this cosmos than we are being told. So another program had to come into place. And right now, many of you who started to open yourself for the spiritual teachings, another program came through. And it didn't necessarily come even from what you are listening, but it probably came from the collective consciousness that you tuned in with. So what is very important to realize here is that we need to stay grounded and very open-minded at the same time. So in order to clear all of these programs, it's the best to start with ourselves and aligning our personal timeline in order to clear any of these programs that are out there. When we start to set the right frequency base for our timeline, and I'm gonna later share like a very simple technique on how you can do it, the reality around you is going to start changing. You will start to see small signs that will suggest you that you are on the right path. You will start to come across information that start to make more sense, that will start to resonate with you more. So this is a beautiful transition that you can go through when you start to clear all of these programs that are in your epigenetic overlay. So when it comes to that mechanics, when we think about the dimensions, let's think about it as a certain higher timeline, right? So right now we are in the 3rd dimension, right? And we are going through a certain time cycle. And normally, if we were following it vertically, if there weren't any distortions in the higher dimensional fields, there would be a point where the transition to the 4th dimension would be possible. So we would be able to accelerate our bodies enough to be able to transition ourselves into a higher frequency timeline. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. Okay, another question. Naturally, there should be 12 timelines. How many do we have today? So this is quite funny to explain. So I guess everybody of you knows that there's like, you have a soul, right? And you are actually just like an aspect of your soul, because a soul is holding 12 incarnates, and you are just one incarnate, and actually you're also a part of the incarnate identity, because you can call yourself a probable self. So that means that one full incarnate has 12 probable selves, and you are one of them. So even if you want to build up your full incarnate identity, you have to integrate all other 11 probable selves. And each probable self has 12 potentialities. And when it comes to you choosing what kind of timeline you want to follow, you're making a choice between these 12 potentialities that you're basically integrating. So when we look at it from this perspective, one soul has 12 incarnates, and in total, one soul is holding 144 probable selves. And you are one of those 144 probable selves. How crazy is that? So that is already showing us how vast identity we have just as being angelic humans, right? Because we also have other aspects of our identity, such as the oversoul and the Christos avatar identity. So there's a lot. And the same is applying to the planet. Our planet is also a probable self. So as I always say, when we think about this planet, it's much larger, because when we think about the planet as being like a huge body, it is a one incarnate self. But these lands that we perceive, all of these continents, and this kind of like a layer surrounding all of these continents, a frequency fence, that's the field of the one probable self of the planet. So I hope that is making sense to everyone. So when it comes to, I'm gonna speak a little bit about right now how it is on a planetary level, and then I'm going to get to more of the personal aspects of choosing your own timeline. So there are still 12 main probabilities of this planet, but what is profound about our probability domain of this planetary body, of the planet Earth, is the fact that we have direct access to the host and to the Earth's potential as a full Nomicode noble planet. We follow the timeline that ensures us the host. And what did I even say here? Okay, so and now here's the thing. Because we talk about basically these timelines that the probable self is choosing, and I said that there are 12 potentialities. So it's like I'm literally getting this vision that there's like this 12-hour clock, and we are in the center of that clock, and basically this clock is spinning, and depending on the number that we align ourselves with, so kind of like the frequency that we align ourselves with, as each of these 12 numbers is holding a certain frequency, there's a moment when this clock stops. And it stops right at the number of the timeline that you're supposed to follow. And that's the same thing that is kind of happening to the planet. So out of these 12 potentialities, these numbers on the clock, only three potentialities of the probable self of the planet hold the host potential. So that's why this planet is kind of shifting between these three timelines. So right now it only depends on us how we actually get there, whether it will be like a fast, rapid, revolutionary transition, or a progressive shift, which will allow us to give some time to adjust. So what I'm speaking about is that we are following this crystal host, right? And there's many people wondering, when is that transition gonna happen, or how we are gonna get there? And so we have already aligned with this pathway, and that is pretty much certain. So now it's only about how rapidly that's going to take place, and that pretty much depends on us, because after all, we are the ones that, as a collective consciousness, we are affecting the planet itself. And it can be like a progressive transition where we will take things easy, or it can be very wild and quick, And I imagine that's something that none of you would like. We need to take it easy here and basically we need to take our time to make the right decisions, to fully prepare ourselves for actually what is gonna happen. So this planet, as a probable self, has chosen to follow the timeline that will bring it to the internal creation fields and to the internal creation time cycles. So that means that we need to shift from the external creation cycles and basically we'll be using the frequencies of this crystal river host to do that. So the reason why this planet is right now being hit with so many plasma frequencies, considering that very strong solar activity and all of these crazy things happening in the grids, and people going crazy because they struggle to accept these frequencies. I mean, some of us are feeling just amazing. Depends. But basically, in order to shift from the external creation cycles, we need the frequencies of the host, the crystic plasmas, because they will assist us in shifting to the internal creation time cycles, where planet Earth will become the median Earth and Eartha, and then we'll shift to the eternal creation time cycles, where we'll have the Araya Earth and the Urea Earth. So the goal is to bring in as much of the energy quantum back to the eternal creation as possible. So this is what we are doing. We are coming back home to the fields of the God Source. And the goal of this planet is to bring as much of the quantum with itself as possible. And this will take place through these very rapid frequency cycles. And what you need to do is catch this wave, and it will take you along with the planet to the internal creation planes and then to the eternal creation planes. Because what is very important, and that's also the case when it comes to all of this craziness happening energetically these days, is that the internal creation is not really enough, and it's about going even higher than that. The crystal river host is the eternal host, as indicated many times by the guardians. So that means that we are aiming for the eternal creation cycles that will assist us to get right to the place where we are supposed to be. So actually, we can say that we've got three main types of the time cycles. We've got the kilontic external time cycles, where something called I think it's called the Akashi expansion. But what I mean is that this is the accretion cycle of the light body. So we are expanding ourselves more and more, and we are becoming this huge, vast light body with all of its auric fields activated. And then we are shifting, once we fully accrete ourselves to being these huge, vast light bodies, then we are basically shifting to the deity internal time cycles. And that's when something called the Adashi return cycles take place. So that means that this huge light body structure is being brought back again in its fully activated form, right back to the core. But the good news is that we don't need to expand ourselves anymore. We are doing it faster way this time, where we activate ourselves from the inside first. And then we are going to the eternal time cycles, the Urada time cycles, which are also called the transfiguration cycles. So it's kind of like in these cycles, it's as if you're doing it both expanding yourself and contracting yourself at the same time, if that makes sense. I cannot really put that into words when it comes to the eternal creation. There's like a very specific feel to it where you don't have any form anymore. You can be anything, but you don't have to have any kind of form at all. So it's as if you become this pure plasma vapor. And we are shifting to the eternal time cycles, the entire planetary body. So this is why it is important for us to synchronize with the planetary body so that we also shift to these accelerated time cycles. So I hope this makes sense to everybody. The planet's goal is to become eternal life planet. But first we need to integrate a certain quantum of the internal creation, and that will start to progressively transition us towards reunion with the FE, God Source consciousness fields. Okay, so the last question about the planet, I think. Yeah. Are we going to Median Earth? Are we leaving this world? How soon can we make this happen? And is there anything we can do to make it happen sooner? And I think that the person who asked me this question must have been quite desperate in a certain way. I guess there are certain things that still need to be aligned on the emotional level, and that's okay. That's okay. Many of us have these feelings, especially when things get quite challenging, another interference coming in, and you're just waking up and thinking like, I really want to get out of this planet. Yeah, this is quite common. But it is also very important for us to realize that be careful what kind of wishes you're expressing. And well, Caroline had her show about the wishes yesterday night, so I would encourage everybody to look into it. It was extremely interesting for me to discover that as well. Anyway, so I already see somebody asking here, so for that we have 900 years. So yes, in 900 years, we are gonna shift into the eternal creation. So this is actually even much more rapid pathway, but let me get into that. So our probability system is directly aligned with the Median Earth pathway. It is not like we are leaving this world, but through multiple rapid cycles of timeline shifts and frequency accelerations, we are going to become Median Earth. So we are not shifting to a different planetary body, but this planet is blending the quantum with its future version in order to become the Median Earth. One of the very important shifts we have to make is so-called the quanta rotada rotation to the deity planes of the internal creation, and that is also related to Earth coming back to its natural stuff, which is the vertical chamber alignment. So that means that this tilt to its axis that this planet has, the 23.5 degrees, it needs to come back to the point zero, and then the planet will make its another rotation in order to align with the internal creation planes. So this is basically what I'm picking up when it comes to these frequency accretion shifts. And I know that there's many people who also feel that. So don't get attached to any dates because everything is changing very rapidly. But from my perspective, a cycle of most rapid shifts will begin in 2027 and will put the planet into the most accelerated cycle of changes we have ever experienced. And these will be energetic changes that may progressively become more and more visible in the 3D realm as the time goes by. So it's not like in 2027 will be already the median Earth, but we'll start to get more and more frequencies to that planetary life field. And there's a chance that some of you who are, let's say, in tune with the Earth sync, kind of having your plasma bodies quite activated, there will be a chance that you may start to have more of the physical experiences when it comes to visiting that plane, kind of going back and forth. That's kind of what I'm picking up. But at the same time, as I said, don't get attached to any kind of date. So the shift to median Earth will happen in approximately 300 years, because whenever we speak about the median Earth, it's basically 2317 AD. So it's actually much closer than the 900 years. So for this planet, I always say that these first 200 years of the host, they will be the most challenging. Like, they could be really terrible, but then the situation will be getting better and better. So this is good news, right? Okay. However, we will keep shifting ourselves towards eternal creation in order to become one with the Uriah Earth, which is the most perfected version of this planet. On a planetary level, we are aligned with the best outcome possible. However, in order to get there, a lot of clearing needs to take place. So it's as if this planet needs to be rebirthed again. It needs to purify all of these heavy things it has been through. Get rid of all of this phantom stuff. It is a process that cannot be stopped, but it can be achieved faster through speeding up our BPR by accelerating the frequency of our plasma time template, so we move through time quicker. However, it is also important to notice that our biofields need time to integrate and accrete certain frequencies, and the overuse of certain energies can be as damaging as not accreting them at all. So, like, if you are running on too high currents for your body to take, it can be very damaging for your personal anatomy. So if you feel like it's enough, just take it easy with yourself. This is something that I've been telling to my students on the classes as well, as we've been doing some quite of a strong meditations, and I tell them, if you feel like it's enough for you, then don't do the next one. Don't force anything on yourself, because then you will end up processing these energies for days. So in context of the transition that we are going through, the higher currents will be running through our bodies, the quicker this whole transition may seem to us. So it's like it's 900 years from our perspective, but that's also another part of our programming, where 900 years for us, it feels like forever, while for other stellar races, it's actually like the blink of an eye. You just kind of sit for a few seconds and it's already been 900 years. So it's actually a very, very quick kind of a transition. So I hope this brings more clarity when it comes to the transition. And now I'm going to get to the topic, what are the multidimensional and the future past consequences of being born on a wrong timeline? What someone's life is like when they are being born in a wrong timeline? What challenges they may have? So first of all, I will give a couple of reasons why somebody may be on a fallen timeline, because it can actually also help you kind of understand why, if that's the case with you, if you feel like you are on a wrong timeline, why is this happening to you, and how you can actually discern that you are. So here's like a list of reasons why you may be on a fallen timeline. So the first reason is targeting since birth or even prior to it. For example, the interference of so-called the evil twin, or the death of the baby body that you were supposed to originally incarnate in. So that kind of pushes you to incarnate somewhere else. So for many souls that especially have been involved in different interstellar conflicts in the past, different plasma wars that have been taking place on this planet for ages, it's as if you never really removed a targeted imprint from you, it's like as if you have this mark on your body. And whenever you start an incarnation, or you're just like a soul that is just supposed to start a certain incarnational cycle, they know. And now what are they gonna do about it? Like, they know that you will incarnate into the body, you will most likely start to awake at a certain point of your life, and you will start to be this light that causes other people to awake, and that's what they want to prevent. So they start to mess on your timeline, because that's the easiest way to do it. They will block your codes, they will block your template, and they will make a huge mess out of your 3D life. And that's how they will start to proceed. And you will never wake up, and you will never realize how precious kind of being you are for this planet. And they do that even prior to birth. So you wake up already holding a blockage. And then if you never remove that blockage, it just keeps going through your lifetime, then you reincarnate again. And the same things happen all over again. So there's like this huge targeting campaign that is taking place with especially the indigos and the starseeds and the pure angelic human races. Another reason why you may be on a fallen timeline is the critical mass of the karmic imprints from past lives. So if you entangle yourself in this game, also during your incarnational cycle, where usually that involves magic, different kind of spells and curses that are put on you, they start to mess in your timeline, and you are not able to create this kind of reality you want to create for yourself. Another reason, curses or spells in your ancestral line that block you from fulfilling your soul purpose. So as I said, sometimes what happens is that the baby is dying very early, and the soul is kind of lost, like it hasn't even started its life in that body fully yet, and it already has to find some other body to inhabit. And so they incarnate into a family line they didn't exactly want to be in. And that basically puts them already on a different timeline they have chosen for themselves. And due to that mutation that is taking place in the moment of conception, you're taking on all of these spells, all of this magic from your ancestors that you're not even quite aware of. And this way, there is another blockage that takes place. And very often all of this magic that is in the ancestral line, it's not allowing you to fully activate your potential. Another reason is the attacks or the hijacking of the local grids. So especially if you were born in a place like on a Lee line or something like that, there might be a certain interference coming directly from the place where you were born. Another thing, religious seals, contracts, etc. Because as long as you're having the religious seals in your body, you're not fully able to unlock your anatomy, especially your pineal gland gets closed due to the baptism and such rituals. And this way you're losing that kind of connection to the higher stations of your identity. Another aspect of it is the practice of black magic and metatronic sciences. I will speak about that later, but just like if somebody is doing all different sorts of magic or working with different archangels, that is allowing you, that is basically allowing these fallen angels to put you on exactly the timeline that they want you to be at. So you're basically losing your free will at this point. Another aspect of why you might find yourself on a fallen timeline, and by the way, this doesn't need to happen during the moment of birth, right? It's something that may keep going throughout all sorts of incarnations, and there's just like a moment when you have to put a stop to it, or it happens at a certain moment of your life. And a forced pregnancy is an aspect of it. What I mean by forced pregnancy, it may happen through rape, but it doesn't have to. A pregnancy that you usually don't expect. And basically, what I mean here is that it ends up with a birth of an impostor, a fallen avatar. So that means that you're not really giving birth to a human being, but you're giving birth to a body that is human, but what is inside of the body on an energetic level is actually a fallen angelic soul or a demonic soul. And women who get depressed after giving birth to a child, or they start to reject the baby after it's born, like they don't want to hug it, they don't want to give any kind of love to them, that's because they feel that it's not really their child completely on the first place. So this is like a very big aspect of the targeting. Another reason is the trauma programming, mind control campaigns, especially in the early childhood. And people who don't remember their childhood, is good to find out why and where is it coming from, because it might be related to certain very traumatic experiences that you've been through that completely twisted your personal timeline. And also, if you happen to be an indigo or an angelic human or a starseed, very often these people with very special coding, because of the targeting they receive, they end up on a fallen timeline due to the different manipulations that have been taking place. So basically, these are the main reasons why you might be on a fallen timeline. So if you feel like that's the case, well, now I'm just kind of going to read the symptoms of what may suggest that you are not on the path that you're supposed to be on. So being born on a fallen timeline, or just kind of on a certain life, on a certain point of your life, you get yourself on the wrong timeline. It means that you may struggle with finding your true purpose. You keep making bad decisions in your life, and you keep repeating the same mistakes, even though you feel like you already drew the lesson from it. You feel that you are not close to your family or the country you were born in, because it may be not the place where you were supposed to originally incarnate. You struggle to succeed. You keep coming across blockages all the time. You feel unhappy and depressed. You feel like you keep coming across wrong people in your life. You suffer from all sorts of diseases, misfortune, and lack of prosperity. So, just kind of like in a nutshell, being born in a wrong timeline, and actually none of us is really on a perfect timeline. I would say that each one of us has a certain set of blockages that we need to work through throughout our incarnations in order to fully align ourselves towards this path that will take us back to the God source fields. So each one of us has some contracts to clear, some emotional imprints to work through that may be distorting our personal timeline. So that's pretty much how it works. So being in a wrong timeline means that you are not aligned with your soul purpose. Your spirit body structure is not aligned, since your personal event horizon is misaligned with its aggregate and the rest of its probable selves. You may not be fully aligned with other of your simultaneous selves and pick up karmic burden from fallen timelines. Many souls with very high coding often end up on fallen timelines due to the targeting taking place even prior to birth. Going through an incarnation on a fallen timeline may force you to repeat the same life all over again until you fully align yourself again. So if you end your life, whether that would be a suicide, which is something I'm gonna speak about as we go on, or there's some kind of like a natural death taking place, and you didn't bring yourself back on the right timeline, you will most likely repeat this life again in order to get yourself back to the right spot. So that's how it works. Okay, so now here's a question. I am in the wrong timeline. How do I find my way out? So first of all, you need to start with releasing all blockages that don't even allow you to get yourself on the right timeline. So you need to get back your soul contract first, actually. Because if your soul contract was hijacked, then it's difficult to even start properly. Make sure to get rid of negative contracts and get back trapped aspects of yourself on many fallen timelines. And it is the best to start with the present life contracts. So start with what is blocking you in this life before you get to all of these past incarnations. Meaning that begin with your ancestral line and see what you're picking up from your ancestors. And start checking for all of these different imprints that have started to appear in your childhood, because that may give you a lot of clues on certain patterns that actually have been repeating for quite a while. If you were born too early or too late, and I'm gonna get to why that's actually taking place in a moment, or there were some complications during the birth process, it is good to see if there aren't any kind of seals or contracts imposed on you since the moment you came to this world. So these difficulties during the birthing process and the child either coming too early or too late. This may indicate certain targeting patterns that that actually suggest that ever since the moment of your birth, there's been some targeting marks put on you. So here's just like a small kind of a technique on how you can start to align your personal timeline. So you can imagine your timeline like a tunnel that may have all sorts of doors, which are the openings to other incarnations or timelines, and start clearing up any kind of distortions you may see on your personal timeline, which is that tunnel that you're visualizing. So basically what you're doing is that you close your eyes and you imagine that you're standing in a tunnel, right? And already the color of that tunnel may suggest to you what kind of timeline you're walking through. If your tunnel is completely dark and it feels heavy when you're trying to imagine that, that already kind of suggests that there are a lot of things you need to clear, as if you're getting this sense as if you're suffocating, like it's difficult to breathe when you try to imagine yourself in that tunnel. That already suggests that there is something out there. And then, if your tunnel is completely dark, just kind of imagine that you're spreading some white light through your heart space to bring some more light into it. And then start to check for any kind of openings that are out there. Certain doorway, and these doorway that are behind you, if you wanted to go backwards through the tunnel, they symbolize your past lifetimes and timelines. And these ones which are in front of you, they show the future lifetimes. So what you're doing is you basically start to close and clear any kind of doorway that may seem black to you, that may seem dark. You can choose to come towards this black doorway and open them up and see what's actually going on in there, but only if you want to. You don't have to do that. If you actually choose to open this doorway and see what's going on in there, don't get yourself too much emotionally engaged, I would say, because that's when you might bring these imprints from that past timeline even more. You can see what's going on up there if you feel like that's a good idea, or you can just choose to close this doorway, clear them up with any kind of plasma frequency, clear this black color. It often looks like the doorway are covered with this black goo energy, and make sure that they are closed, and proceed like this with the doorway that are dark in your tunnel. There might be also some kind of different windows. And if you're having this, like you're seeing, okay, my doorway are fine, but I'm seeing some windows in my timeline, that is suggesting certain attachments that are coming either from other people or from other beings, or just from the planetary life field, different timelines that are trying to influence you at the same time. So it's also worth to just close these black windows. So with this simple technique, you can start to get yourself aligned with your timeline. The knowledge about these dark openings may come to you with time. And this technique also basically helps you to get back these aspects of yourself that may be stuck on the fallen timelines. So this is kind of like a few things at once with this very simple exercise. Make sure to do it in silence. Just clear your mind from any kind of thoughts and see what kind of transformation you're going to experience within yourself. And the reason why these different aspects of ourselves need to be brought back from these timelines on which they are stuck is because very often certain stuck aspects of ourselves cause the situation where we bring the reversed frequencies from fallen timelines, and that basically puts us on a fallen timeline in this incarnation too. So that's important to realize that since everything happens at the same time, simultaneously, we may receive different types of an influence coming from these other aspects of ourselves. And it is also worth mentioning that when it comes to what is distorting our personal timeline is also the external interference, all sorts of programming that we are receiving from this hologram that we experience. And that involves certain types of music, especially the metal music, is creating a lot of openings to the demonic realms. Certain movies, especially the horror movies and the science fiction movies, they basically show a certain timeline that they want to insert in the collective consciousness of the planet. And also the infrasound waves, basically the way that it works is that they are bringing the waves that have the same length and basically, let's say, the same BPR of the wave that is corresponding to that fallen timeline that they want you to align with. So basically, that's kind of like a big agenda that is taking place these days. These ear ringing sensations and this weird noise in the ears, it's like a certain attempt to bring these infrasound waves to you to start putting you on that fallen timeline. And if you hear that in your ears, it doesn't mean that you're on a fallen timeline, but that's kind of what they are trying to do. But as long as you shield yourself and you clear that noise from your ears, it's not like it's dangerous. Okay, if you are on a fallen timeline, you also need to make sure to clear your body, especially your DNA template. The fallen timelines are not so scary anymore once you hold enough Christic quantum to override the attempts to get you on the wrong path. If you start to stand in your Christic power, nobody could bring you on the timeline you wouldn't like, because it's worth remembering that you have the free will choice. And right now, our will and the things we express, they are getting manifested quicker and quicker. And there's a certain very malicious manipulation that I came across last week among a few people. And I just would like to talk about it because if it's something that's been happening to you, it's important for you to be aware of it, that this is something that is not of you, and there are certain measures that you need to take in order to clear that imprint. So what I'm talking about is that there is this energetic war right now that tries to get us on fallen timelines by using openings from our past. So that means that all of these things that you didn't clear in your past timelines, especially, and your future ones as well, but they mostly come through the past, they will try to use it against you, especially the childhood traumas and things like that. They will try to create an opening again. This malicious technique utilizes something called the elemental window in the second DNA strand. It is aimed at activating emotional imprints we haven't resolved in the past. Very often these feelings involve guilt, shame, angriness, all of these low frequency emotions. And they open the gates between our present and our past to bring these stuck emotions back to our lives again. So I'm gonna read that sentence once again, just so everybody processes that again. So this elemental window in the second DNA strand that is being opened, it is aimed at activating emotional imprints we haven't resolved in the past and open gateways between our present and our past to bring these stuck emotions back to our lives again. Such procedure also starts to reverse the elementals in our body, especially the water molecules. If our emotional bodies start to run on reversals, it is very easy to twist the personal timeline and affect it. And why is that? Because if our mental bodies are getting messed up, our mental bodies also get messed up, and we start to think in very negative way. So we start to bring all of the negativity we have been experiencing in the past right into the present. And that creates an opening, literally like a wormhole, running from, let's say, your traumatized teenager self right into your present adult self. And what happens is that they start to influence each other, over-depress each other, and if you don't transmute that past life imprint, you're not going to able to proceed further at this point, because that past will keep coming back all over again. So that's why right now working on integrating our inner child, which you can do by simply coming back in your mind. You just kind of sit comfortably, close your eyes, and you just set that intention to connect with your child self, right? To your inner child. And you may be taken to a situation where you as a child or as a teenager, you were going through some difficult moments, and you can project yourself as a plasma body, as a present self, but the plasma body is kind of like a bridge between your present self and your past self. And you can basically heal yourself from that moment, remove any kind of, usually there's like a lot of blockages on the heart chakra level. You clear them with the white plasma energies, and you basically start to speak with your younger self in order to cause the deeper transformation that takes place within you. So this is one of the things that you can do, especially if right now there's this situation where the past keeps chasing you and you're trying to run away from it, and everything around you is getting chaotic, and you don't even realize that it's because of that emotional imprint you need to work on. So this is just for those who are struggling with it. Okay, so another question. Is there a sort of energetic battle going on that's about pulling us to certain timelines? So the answer is yes. There are many different agendas which basically serve the same purpose. It's about getting us on the undesirable timelines so we cannot get ourselves out of this planet. And so we don't assist in this realm properly by fulfilling our Christic purpose here. So this is what they are doing. The reason why they target us even before we are actually birthed is because they need energy, and they need it more than they need it right now more than they ever did before. So what they are doing is that they drain from us in this life, in the past lives, in the future lives, and we need to cut off the interference on all of our timelines. So if you're also seeing weird beings, when you're kind of doing this technique where you visualize your tunnel, which symbolizes your timeline, basically starts to also clear it from any kind of beings, as there might be a lot of demonic entities coming from your past timelines and trying to influence you in a way. So this is just another aspect of it. So some of the strategies when it comes to putting us on these fallen timelines, actually aligning us fully with the phantom realities, which kind of have these separate, closed time cycles, involve inserting fallen timelines as an experiential probability. So, for example, this involves the apocalyptic visions of the end of the world that are presented to us through different kind of movies, for example. We also have the MK Ultra programming, which may include channeling and inserting certain future visions into the minds of the clairvoyant people. So certain clairvoyant people that have all of these dramatic visions of the future, they are being under control, and they are supposed to spread these visions to the rest of the life field in order to insert this fallen probability timeline into their personal experience. Another thing is the programs such as you aren't able to control your destiny. So often you have to ask for help, other external beings. What I mean by that is that there's been quite a lot of these movements that you don't really have free will. Everything depends on the will of God. And that's basically been the main motto of the Middle Ages, that you need to pray to the Lord. So your life is basically full of prosperity, etc. And sometimes you even have to hurt yourself, kind of get rid of any kind of things that make you happy, just to fully sacrifice yourself in service to the Lord, to the fallen angel. So this is just like a certain aspect of the things that are coming also from these past timelines. What I've been even seeing, that there are some people that they are having the slavery marks on their bodies. Like either they are having this thing on their neck or some kind of chains on their hands. And that is basically not allowing them to fully have that freedom in their energetic bodies, like they are still carrying these past imprints. So this is one aspect of it. All of this programming that has been going on for ages, where nobody has really ever told us that we have the free will. We had to discover it ourselves. While for most of the life we were actually taught that we don't really have much influence over our lives. And of course, the last strategy here is creating openings and manipulating in your past and future timelines, as we are speaking about it. So the more people from the collective consciousness field connect to the fallen timelines, the more realistic it will be for fallen angelics to align these fallen timelines with the planetary timeline. That's what all of these stolen aspects of our souls are for, in order to bring in as much phantom as possible. This game is getting more intense now, as we are facing the goneful intruders coming into our realm, but at the same time, thanks to the accelerated activation of the Nomiseed and its upgrades that started in 2022 and they will continue until 2028, we'll be receiving more and more powerful quantum from the planes of the eternal creation to manage such interference. So even though the situation got more intense and the attacks are quite, I would say, strange, in a way, they are just getting very, very weird. I've been literally seeing this very strange being when I woke up today. It seems like I've been wandering in the phantom for the entire night. And the reason why I'm telling this is because I feel that something doesn't want me to speak about it, and I just like to go against whatever is trying to block me, so I will speak about it. I was in the phantom for most of the night. It kind of feels like I was bringing certain souls, just getting them out of there. And I woke up and I just felt like my solar plexus area is completely contracted. And I was like, okay, what is it again? And I saw these white hands with very long claws literally stuck in my solar plexus. And when I started to get them out of my body, I felt extreme relief. And then I saw this huge white being, and it looked very angelic, and it was just looking at me. And it kind of couldn't believe that I got it out. And then I just sent it back to the source fields. So the attacks are getting very strange because actually these beings, they may look very pretty to you, but they may be very malicious. So especially if you're this kind of person working with different beings, make sure that they are guardians, because now they like to cloak a lot. And they may look beautiful, but it doesn't mean that they are good. So anyways, just wanted to share that the attacks are very, very weird. But it may not happen to you, especially if you're not traveling to the phantom realities. Anyways, this Nomiseed, we can say even 2 years ago, it started to accelerate even more. And that is great news for us, because it's allowing us to start to receive direct frequency spectra from the eternal creation. And because of this Black Legion coming in to the game, the Nomiseed started to literally throw direct pulses to the planetary grids in order to start healing them even more rapidly. So this is wonderful news for us. Okay, so I still have quite a lot of questions to go through, so I better kind of speed up if I want to make it into like in half an hour. Okay, so another question, and these two next questions that I've got here, they are pretty much related to each other. So a baby born according to the doctor's timetable and not waiting for when it wants to come, could that put it into a wrong timeline? So the answer is yes, because it is a spirit, not a doctor, that tethered into the body, and it knows it's time to come out. So the spirit knows better than the doctor when it is time to start its life on this planet in the body. Sometimes the baby is supposed to come earlier or later, depending on certain external circumstances. Every situation is different, and sometimes a soul chooses to come and align energetically with specific energies coming down to that planet on a certain day to anchor them in the grids. There are also special cases where the spirit is waiting for the very last moment in order to integrate with the fetal body. There are also cases where mother is facing certain interference in her fields and that puts the fetal body in energetic and sometimes physical danger. So there are many aspects of it, but if the baby is coming through the scheduled C-section, that is kind of against the free will of that little being. And it's not like the child will be instantly on a fallen timeline, but this is, at the same time, this is not really what they scheduled for themselves. If they come a few days earlier, that's already like a small difference in the angles when it comes to their timeline. So that's why this is quite important. So if a baby arrives later than expected or too early, can that mean entering a wrong timeline? So this is actually a very individual matter. Some babies are born early due to very high frequencies they carry that could be too much for the mother's field to carry. So sometimes when, especially like an indigo soul or some kind of like a starseed being, they may come like after 7 months or just like a few weeks earlier because of holding a lot of quantum, and it could be like too much for the mother to handle, so there won't be any kind of further consequences. The child is coming earlier. Sometimes children are born early because of certain targeting issues, especially if they are facing interference from the evil twin. And what I mean by the evil twin is that there's often this case where during the conception point, basically, you've got 2 different fetal bodies in the same womb, right? And there's a chance that one of them may get infiltrated by an intruder. And that puts that other soul in danger. And now the question is whether this intruder is going to succeed in infiltrating that second body and pretty much killing it, or will it be that angelic soul that manages to get the intruder out? So that's why very often there's this case where at a certain point of the pregnancy, where a mother thought that she's gonna have like 2 children and that second one disappears, well, it's usually that angelic soul that is out there. But if the 2 children come to place and one of them is just completely different than the other, well, that's because one of them is the intruder soul in the human body. So that's how it is with the twins. There are also cases when the 2 angelic souls incarnate, but this is pretty much very individual. That could be also the case if the child is born too late, especially if the spirit is waiting for a longer period of time in order to tether into the body. So usually it is not about entering the wrong timeline, but a very specific timing that the spirit has. When a baby is born according to the doctor's schedule, usually through the C-section, that's when the baby may be put on a fallen timeline because it starts their incarnation not in the time frame that they have chosen, so it may throw the angles off a little bit. But it doesn't mean a completely fallen timeline unless there are some other factors that may decide about it. And also specific problems during the pregnancy and in the moment of the birth may suggest targeting, interference, and distortions coming from different timelines. Also, when it comes to that evil twin, I must say that this is something that I experienced on a personal level. For example, I came too late. Like, I just didn't want to come out of the womb. And the reason is that my spirit was waiting for that intruder soul to fully just get out. I was supposed to have an angelic twin with me, but what happened is that an intruder came in. It started to infiltrate one of the bodies that were in the womb. So I basically had to connect the energies with that twin soul I was supposed to incarnate with, right? And we had to get rid, space dust, this intruder being. And then later, basically, I have consciously decided to incarnate into this body, and that other twin soul of mine that was supposed to be with me, kind of like as my second part of myself, she decided that she's gonna probably do it some other time, right? So it was like a certain decision that had to take place, and that's why my spirit was waiting until the very last moment to incarnate into the body, where it was like it was taking too long, so that's the C-section had to be made, otherwise I wouldn't probably come out alive. So that's how it was. And I managed to progressively get to these memories as I was discovering more about myself. So that's pretty much like from my personal experience. I came too late because my spirit was waiting. And well, I'm often laughing that I just really didn't want to, because of so many things that I've already had to fight against different beings in the womb. I just really didn't feel like coming on this planet, but well, here I am. Okay, so getting to the next question. Can one be connected to and be influenced by more than one timeline? So this is actually a matter of the perspective, how we look at this question. First of all, we should remember that all of us are multidimensional beings. As one probable self, we go through a certain timeline, perceiving it in a linear perspective. However, our full incarnate identity has 12 probable selves, each one of them following a certain timeline. So as we start the process of the spiritual integration, we start to experience more and more of events coming from timelines that are parallel to ours. The déjà vu feeling may be coming from the fact that you already experienced a similar situation on another timeline. Because we are multidimensional beings, we experience parallel realities, even though we don't always have conscious memories of that. Choices of our probable selves affect our timeline too, just like we affect them. It is also worth mentioning that we are affected by the planetary and collective consciousness timeline, as well as the solar, galactic, universal, etc. time cycles. It brings us again to the theory of the unified field, where the choices we make on the personal timeline affect the collective, and the collective in return is affecting us. That's why if we want to align with the best possible outcome, we are the change. And if we want this planet to become a better place, we need to do this all together in co-creation. Okay. So now I'm going to get to the question I received today. I just have a question here about the antiparticle self. So our antiparticle version is one or more than one from those 12 probable selves. So actually, that's a good question. So the way that I see this is that I'm talking about the probable selves that are in the, well, now that's actually a good question, because you also have to consider the Itore and the Adore side. So the way that I would say this is that the particle self is kind of like the antiparticle self is like this mirror reflection of our particle self identity. So I would say that we've got like 12 probable selves also on this antiparticle side of the universe, but I would need to verify that. So, well, that's a good question, considering that we also have this Adore side. But I would say that this is how it works, that there's like a completely different set of these versions of ourselves on the antiparticle universe, because it's like a mirror reflection of it. Okay, so somebody asked me, what is your understanding of the Mandela effects? What are they and how do they occur? So I remember that I think I was talking about it. I somehow had some notes on the Mandela effect, so I just got them back from the same notebook actually. But I will expand on that a little bit. I think I was talking about it back in December on some kind of interview. So the way I understand Mandela effects is actually in a couple of different ways. If somebody doesn't know what the Mandela effect is, it's basically a phenomenon where people remember a certain event that actually didn't take place, or they just remember something in a completely different way than it actually happened. So now the question is, why is that? And it's actually very much related to the timelines. Okay, so the first way these Mandela effects may take place is through the timeline shifts. So when there is a moment when you're shifting a timeline, it's as if for a moment you're in two timelines at the same time. Let's say they are blending, and then you're going to the next one. And in this moment of blending, you may experience certain changes in your reality. And it's like different things from the other timelines may come through. The second thing, and that's pretty much like a similar to the first one, is that there are some places where two different time-space locations blend with each other. And in these intersection points, different beings or objects may come through a different timeline. So I don't know why the Bermuda Triangle is coming to my mind. So I guess in that place, we can see different beings, different species that we didn't actually recognize on the planet before, and they may be actually coming from different timelines, from different realities. Okay. The next thing is that there are certain artificial inserts in the collective consciousness. So what I mean by that is that our whole history has been pretty much faked to a certain degree. So now when somebody is experiencing a Mandela effect, is that there are certain projections that may be coming from their past timelines, like when they were living in that history moment, right? And they just have like a completely different memory of it. So let's say they are learning about some history from ancient Egypt, and there are just some information that they are learning about on some history class, and then they are writing an essay, and they make a ton of mistakes because they are sure that they've been learning exactly these things that they are writing about, but then they check it in the book and it's actually in a totally different way, and they are like, well, I could literally say for sure that these are the information that I was learning. Well, actually, they were coming from through these past timelines where that same person had their experiences at, right? So the Mandela effect can actually sometimes show this kind of deception in a certain way. And another thing is that our consciousness expands and we are connecting with other versions of our probable selves, and we see different potentialities of them. So, as I said, the more you start to accrete your frequencies, you reconnect with your probable selves, you start to see more and more of different timelines taking place at the same time. And you could start to get really confused in which timeline you actually are. And another part of this question was, how would you know if you are a Mandela effect? Well, I don't know, that question gave me chills. So this is just kind of like an answer that came through me. So there are some people, and there is quite a large number of them, where they actually repeat a life that they have already gone through. So what happens is that they may experience a lot of déjà vu and Mandela effects if they have already experienced something but made a different decision, which started to shift the outcome, and thus they started to make a difference on a personal and collective timeline. So this is kind of what happens, and I'm gonna get to that probably at the end. I think I have that question, where once we start to work through our imprints that we are holding, different kinds of things in the past that we would like to reprogram, that we would like to shift, we start to align with different timelines. So we may start to get completely different memories about our childhood. There could be like a moment when you will remember something completely different when you were 5 years old than your parents do. And that is actually suggesting that, well, this is kind of like a Mandela effect taking place, because you are actually already reconnecting yourself with a different timeline. So this is pretty much my answer to it. Okay, well, there's still quite a lot of it. I hope I do manage to speak about everything by the time I have to finish. Okay, what actions can shift you to a different timeline? First of all, it is changing your past. Since everything happens in the now, what happens for us in the future or past is only our own personal perspective. When we start to heal different aspects of our past, we start to align ourselves more with the Christic timeline. Most of us don't realize that some of our aspects still live through the traumas they've been going through in the past, because they are stuck in the time loops. Secondly, our decisions we make all the time determine with what probability we will align with. When we make a decision that is aligned with our higher or the eternal self, we align with the best outcome possible for us. The best approach we can have is to be open for whatever kind of experiences await us. Any kind of fears and concerns may only put us on the undesirable timelines, because they will attract frequencies and projections we have created in our mental bodies. And thirdly, make sure to remove any influences from the fallen and phantom timelines. Just clear your tunnel. And any projections from other people's timelines, especially from your ancestral imprint. So every decision that you make, especially kind of like a decision that is causing a certain type of transformation in your life, like moving out to a different country or changing a job, it's actually it's the moment when you're choosing a certain probability outcome for you. So that's why it's important to make the right decision in this regards. So just a question when we come back to what's been going on with the planet and the split and the timeline split that took place in November. So I've got a question here. What impact has the recent split had on the timelines? Is there a difference between timeline split and timeline shift? Well, there is, but I will get into that in a moment. Okay. So the recent timeline split allowed for integration of the Christic spiral to the Earth's timeline, which eliminated a lot of phantom timelines that were attempted to drag this planet into fall. So now we have a lot more Christic quantum to manage to begin our alignment with the eternal creation host path that this planet has consciously chosen for itself. So the situation is much better, even though we still have a long way to go. So what is a timeline shift? So the timeline shift is basically when you align yourself with a new probability set, while the timeline split is when two timelines that were running parallel to each other are starting to separate. So this is what started to happen to this Metatronic and the crystal spiral, is that they just split and they are not really running parallel anymore. There's like one to a certain degree overriding the other. So we shift timelines at our personal moments of our time cycles. And that is also related to something called the octant cycles, where every 8 years, there is this moment when you're kind of making a shift to a certain integration point. And also at specific points of certain galactic, solar, and planetary alignments. That is related not only to changes in our personal hologram, but also on a larger scale of the planetary and cosmic field. And it's not like, I don't mean here like this astrology stuff where there are these retrogrades and this stuff aligning with this. It's not about that. It's about the galactic, solar, planetary, etc. timelines that are basically starting to have their intersect points when there is a possibility to jump on a more high frequency timeline, let's say. Okay, and here's another question when it comes to jumping, because actually jumping is not really the word for it. You're not jumping on timelines. Well, to some degree you can when you're projecting to different aspects of your past incarnations. You can very quickly jump from this timeline to the other and start to work with these different aspects of yourself. But in general, so I will just read a question here first. Do we jump timelines, or is it more like we disconnect and connect to them? Do some get eradicated and destroyed in detoxification, and others get integrated? So it's not about jumping or shifting, or it's actually, I like to use the word align, that we align with a certain timeline. So even if you align yourself at the moment with a fallen timeline, you can always shift certain things in your body, shift your frequency in order to align with the better timeline you would like to have for yourself. So we align ourselves with a certain outcome based on a frequency level of our system, of our biofield. It has always been about the frequency you hold in yourself that allows you to align with certain outcomes. Since time is simultaneous, it's not like a timeline gets destroyed, but it is getting progressively purified through increasing the frequencies running through it. That's why there are certain souls that work at fallen timelines, including myself, especially in the dream state, to bring in the Christic frequencies to them and begin the process of their clearing. So this is what is taking place these days, a massive clearing of all of these fallen and phantom timelines. And many of us Christics are actually taking part in this huge process. So here's just like a question: how do we align more with our heroic timeline? And I just made like a small list of these different aspects of it. So first of all, be in the now. Don't project your worries to past or future. Stay grounded, right? So don't be with your mind in the past, don't be in the future, be in the now. And from the creation point of the now, start to shift different aspects of your timelines. Second of all, do plasma activations to synchronize yourself with the path of the host, obviously. Always listen to your inner guidance, because your eternal self may suggest your ego self what kind of path you're supposed to follow. Heal your past, heal the different aspects of this life and past lifetimes. Make choices that are aligned with yourself, even if that's against your family members or your friends. Always make conscious decisions for yourself. Integrate your inner child aspects and your past life aspects. Clear the influence from your ancestral line. Clear yourself from the influence of the artificial intelligence. And this is because this is actually something that is messing a lot in our timelines lately. The influence of the artificial intelligence that, as I was saying, wow, I think that was already a month ago when I was speaking about the AI, which is quite incredible. But anyways, with the AI, as I said, it's a multidimensional tool. So the AI also likes to play with the timelines. So this is kind of like a short list. How do you align with the heroic timeline? And basically this different advice that I've been giving all the way through this show, it's basically kind of already pointing you out towards what you should focus on. Okay, here's just like another question that I would like to mention quickly, and that's like something that I would say is very important here, especially if that person who wrote that question is listening to me. I would say that this is very important. So I'm just gonna read it. When I experience physical death, can I choose my right path again? Can I ask my higher self to take measures that are a little harsh on my 3D identity, but serve my soul well? So that question kind of, I wouldn't say that it triggered me, but it is the mindset that has been also a part of the programming, where we kept reincarnating all over again. We've been stuck in this karmic circle because of this kind of an approach, where we were thinking, okay, we're just going to do better in the next life. And we kept going like this, and these karmic imprints started to reach their critical mass, and they started to build up and cause the misalignment with the best kind of timeline we can have. So my answer to this question is quite simple. It is the best to get the most out of this experience you are having right now. Your soul has chosen this life for a reason, in order to learn, grow, and expand. Death or suicide is not a solution here, because suicide entraps the soul. You will probably end up repeating the life you decided to finish, and that may put you into an endless time loop. It is worth realizing that our body here is a gift, and we should appreciate it. The reason why our DNA, blood, and other aspects are being stolen is because our vehicle, our body, is very precious to other life forms that would like to incarnate into it, but they don't hold enough crystic quantum to be able to do that. That's why they need to attach to the soul first, infiltrate it, and then take over the body itself. So don't think about what you're going to do after you die, but think about what you can do when you're having this body, because without the body, there's not so much of when it comes to the options that you've got. So that's why it's important to be aware of that. Okay, another question here. I've got only 2 questions left. Luckily, I didn't even realize that I wrote so much. I think that this time something messed up with my personal timelines today, where I was just writing down these questions. And I think it took me only 2 hours, but now when I look at this amount of the things I have written down, I start to doubt that I actually did it in 2 hours, so I really don't know. But anyways, are there artificial timelines with intents to deceive and entrap beings by promising it is possible to manifest, create or wish for things and matters that are unnatural or false, to make the beings that are very capable and well-intended confused and to lose trust in that magic can be good and things could change for the better? Okay, that's like a way too long sentence. So basically, what I do believe that this person meant is that there are certain timelines that may kind of be deceiving in some way, where we are being promised shape-shifting, some magical gifts, and could that kind of be like a certain type of manipulation? So the answer is yes, and there are some timelines that are usually fallen, and we connect to them through the use of magic and metatronic technologies. So usually I would say that what this person is referring to is basically mostly related to the metatronic technologies. It's either certain beings inserting something to our timelines, or it's us who, through the use of magic, in very foolish and naive way, cause the fallen timelines, or just the metatronic timelines, to come to our reality. So that's why it's always the best to co-create with ourselves, basically using our own personal power. So this is my answer to it. There are certain tricks, certain games that we are put into when it comes to using different kinds of magic, whether these are different love spells and stuff like that. They are messing with our personal timelines, and they are inserting certain things. So for example, if there's like this angelic being which promises you a lot of money, right? You're just going to do a certain spell and you're going to get a lot of prosperity into your life. Well, you're bringing a lot of very heavy karmic imprints on yourself. So be careful with that. If there are any kind of problems with your prosperity, look into what is actually blocking you from achieving that. Okay. And the last question. Can one's past be different from what one remembers as experienced, and can both or multiple ways be true at the same time? So yes, we can have memories of the past. We can have different memories of the past, either because these memories have been inserted, usually to cover abductions or traumatic events, or it may be coming from a shift that you've made yourself in the past timeline by basically transforming these traumatic imprints. So you may experience a shift in personal memories when you align yourself with other timeline sets. So that's basically my answer to it. And what I mean by different memories, you may start to see that once you start to work with these different past imprints that you're struggling with, they won't seem so hurtful anymore. they are not going to feel so painful. So it can be a beginning of a wonderful transformation that you will start to get through. Okay, so I think I was speaking quite a lot today, just kind of going with the flow. So I think this is everything when it comes to the topic of the timelines. If there will be more questions coming up, I might just continue next week, but we'll see about it, as this is just like a very large topic. And I would say that it's much of a better topic for me to speak about than the underground. I really don't like underground, so this just kind of made me feel much better to speak about something that I actually enjoy. And these are the transformations that we all have to go through. I would say that for me, when I'm working with people, the most important thing that I look into, especially lately, seeing what's going on with all of this interference taking place from different timelines, is that making sure that an individual is on the right timeline where they can basically fully co-create with their spirit, with the other cosmic aspects of themselves. So I would say that this is the main goal that we should have at this moment. So with that being said, thank you all for being with me for the entire 2 hours. I wish you a wonderful evening or a wonderful day, if you're in a different time zone. And I'm going to see you guys next week. And well, I hope that you enjoyed. And much, much love to you. Bye bye.